Welcome to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, a Full Mind production. At Full Mind, our vision is to ensure every child has access to an exceptional education. Each episode, we will be joined by pathfinders within and around the education space who are bringing about transformational change on behalf of deserving students. I am your host, Hayley Spira-Bauer. Welcome back, everybody, to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. We have a very celebrated superintendent with us here today, someone I am beyond thrilled to interview. We have Dr. Neil Gupta from Oakwood City School District. Thank you so much for coming, Dr. Gupta.
I am so excited. This has been pretty cool just to even be on a call with you right now. This is cool.
I know. Well, we had a good introduction from our dear friend, Jen Womble, and in a matter of days, we got ourselves to this call and setting up for the interview. And we have a lot to talk about. I want to start off by asking you, though, how did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself?
That's a great question. I would say this idea, and I think this hopefully will come out throughout this tone of this conversation, but I have always been attuned to the idea about relationships. I without even maybe knowing that, I maybe gravitated towards looking for mentors, looking for people that would help to kind of guide me, coach me, and in all different facets, right? Like on the tennis court, but also in leadership. And it's interesting because I think people will ask sometimes, like, who is your mentor? And I laugh and I go, I've got thousands of mentors. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I need so much help. And so you build people around you. And I think through that, there's this idea about supporting, hopefully you got people in your lives that are supporting you. They're pushing you, they're pulling you, they're guiding you, they're supporting you. And I think that from a personal, professional standpoint, I just have had those people in my life that have kind of, given me that exposure, that encouragement, the ability to kind of like try different things and then say, I've got this, and I'm here to help you. And I think through that, I've continued to kind of learn and grow.
You're going on your third year as superintendent of Oakwood City School District. What is that like? How has the first couple years been in the district? I know you're a really high performing district and there's a lot to celebrate, but curious about an insider's view of what's going on in the community.
Sure. So nothing nothing could have prepared me for a superintendent interview. My first superintendent interview. I'd in 3 different districts prior to, I was at the central office level, like teacher, assistant principal, and then central office in 3 different districts. And so I've interviewed it. That's not the issue, but superintendent interview was completely different. More high stakes, more rooms to be in, more people that were curious about things. I would say that, like, really the conversations and one of the interviews, for example, they asked me what my vision was. And I said to them, I said, okay, I'm gonna tell you like 3 things I'm going to do on how I'm going to get there, and then why I'm going to do that. So they get all their pens and pencils ready, sort of thing, in this room. And I said, I'm going to listen. Then I'm going to listen. And they're writing this down. And then I go, and then I'm going to listen. Right. And I looked at them and I said, you want me to give a vision? I haven't even stepped foot in your community yet. I said, so if I come in and answer your question today, if I answer your question today, you should be very scared, because I'm bringing outside perspectives, and I've got lots of outside perspectives, but those may not fit into the DNA of this community. And so really, I've got to have that permission to be able to do that. And that must have been a great answer, because I got the job. I don't know if that was the reason.
Yeah.
And so it was funny because I kept getting asked that question the first couple weeks of transition.
Wow.
And people were happy with that answer. They were very ecstatic about that answer. My community relations person pulled me aside one day after a couple of weeks and said, okay, that works, but that's not going to work for the next 3 years. You can't use that answer. So how are you going to pivot? So in about 4 or 5 months after onboarding in the job, we unveiled, we're right outside Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and outside Dayton, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we launched was embarking on a new journey together. It was at a board meeting. I went to the podium. I got up from my chair from sitting and went to the podium and said, I'm going to unveil our kind of our plan of community engagement. And it was a visual. Feel free to ask me and email me, and I'll send it to you. But it's a plane that's taking off, and it is this idea about how are we going to engage our community in developing a vision together. And it wasn't going to be my vision; it was going to be our vision. And so, a lot of informal and formal mechanisms. Some of them to inform, and then some of them to create two-way communication. So, community coffees that I was going to hold, and so I held those, and made sure that we put the dates out there. They were in the newspaper, they were on our website, in our newsletters, trying to just engage people in the conversations. There was something called a key communicators group. So I've got a group that I meet with every other month that's consistent of community members that I want them to push back on me. I want them to ask questions. I want them to tell me what maybe I'm not even aware of that's out in the community. And I told them, I'm not asking you to go back out and believe everything I say. You're still allowed to go and you don't have to have a company line. But what I'm going to ask is that you at least can say, this is what the information is. So you could go out and say, listen, I think Dr. Gupta is wrong, and he's completely wrong in his decision, but this is what it is. So I'm not asking you to believe it, but I'm asking you to at least to share that information out there. But they're just telling me things that are murmuring out into the community, things that I should be thinking about. It's really been beneficial. I now have a bin for coffee that I take out to the school buildings, and I before school do that. The first meeting, everybody shows up, the whole staff showed up, and they're sitting and waiting. And I said, listen, I don't have an agenda. I just want to really connect. What are you going to do this weekend? And how are you? Tell me about your family. And it was just a way for us to build relationship. And then sometimes conversations come out with, I'm worried about this. I'm thinking about this. Can you help navigate this? And we go through those things, but really trying to make myself available to do that. We've done community surveys. We've done other things like that. But that's really just been beneficial.
I was with one of my friends who is a teacher last night, and we were just talking about a leader in her district who moved on from the district, and she was saying how much she missed her. And I said, and it was like an assistant superintendent level position. And I asked my friend, well, what do you miss about her? She's like, I just miss having a leader who was so in the trenches with us, who sat down with us on planning days or visited the school and really heard what we were facing, the challenges, and didn't always offer a solution, but was there and listening. And so, Dr. Gupta, I could tell you, not just from my own personal experience, but from the trenches last night, what really resonates with teachers in the brick and mortar schools, and even in virtual schools. I know from FullMind, but in schools today, they want to be seen, they want to be heard. And I think that, I'm sure you would argue it's true, hearing and seeing your teachers helps you be a better leader.
Absolutely. It is. It helps you to notice things. It helps you to really, I'm going to be honest with you. First of all, figure out what resources I can do to help support, others. And the other thing is how do I spotlight them? I'm not going into, I don't need to evaluate. I'm not evaluating teachers. That's not what my purpose and role is. That's what the principals are for. Mine is really to be a cheerleader, to kind of check in, connect with kids, and just kind of be another light that staff members can kind of see, that hopefully they're walking away going, gosh, we feel a little bit more inspired and hope and energy from before I had walked in. So.
Yeah, no, I really love to hear that. And, prior to the interview, you and I spoke a little bit about like what's coming this year for Oakwood City Schools, but I'm going to tee you up here. I know that what's coming for Oakwood City Schools this school year is born of this community engagement. So first, can you tell us, how did it get born of the community engagement, and what should we all be excited about?
Sure. So two of them, one of the two large ones, one being same thing, just like I kept getting asked about my vision for the district. One was, what is our STEM vision? So earlier I talked about, we're right outside Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We're near some hospitals and universities. And so there is kind of a STEM influence around here. And our teachers are doing phenomenal work. But it's just, we aren't doing it necessarily in a coordinated fashion. So we're doing it. It's just not coordinated. I think that, really it's just that idea of kind of tightening things up a little bit. Last year we were able to, which I think is, when you talk about the idea about go slow to go fast later, and let's make sure that we're doing things for the right reasons and not just chasing things. So I really had to explain to our community and to our staff, and I'm still not there yet. Like I haven't saturated where I feel like, they've gotten this, but STEM isn't just about like, you have to define things, right? Like I think that early on, everybody thought that, and I said this, STEM is not me buying a lot of drones. Like it isn't. Like there are, and because it's not about the money and it's not about the technology per se. It's really about the thinking dispositions that we want kids to have. We want them to have almost like the 5 C's. We want them to have curiosity and creativity and collaboration. So I said I could buy these tricked out drones that are pre-programmed. I don't think that's what you really want, pre-programmed. You want things where almost the kids are using duct tape and they're making a drone, like they're building a drone. It's kind of like, and there's no instructions. That's kind of like what we want students to do, sort of thing. So, or let's say if the drone breaks, it's not about me going and buying a new drone. It's about them trying to tinker with it and figure out like what makes it work and see if they can even try to get fixed. That's just an example, but really it's those thinking dispositions. And so last year, the Board of Education, I had recommended for us to have STEM champions, a supplemental position in each building that would help to, and I'm not looking that they were necessarily the smartest person. They were just going to be the most tenacious person to say, let's kind of get through this. So great group last year, and they conducted with our curriculum director an audit of, we're partnering with Jason Learning. Jason Learning has a certification program. And what we wanted was to kind of like have kind of a template that would give us feedback. And so they spent the course of the year gathering artifacts on what do we, based on their metrics, on their standards and benchmarks and things. And we were able to submit that, got that back over the summer. We are a STEM certified now district, which is great, but it's like level 1. So, but even more important than that banner that we received was that we got feedback, and that feedback is going to become our roadmap for now the next couple of years, and we're really excited about that.
The values that you name that are so important for building this really in thoughtful STEM program are those same values that I talk about that I want my own kids to have, right? Like I want them more than anything to be curious. I think a lot comes from being curious. I wonder, as you've embarked on planning for this STEM like initiative or implementation, what are some of the things that you've anticipated might go wrong, and how are you tackling that?
Yeah, I think it's that, and I was actually, and I'll out myself here, was I kept saying to a core group of our leadership team, this didn't get out to our staff, so now it's going to be out there.
You heard it here first.
Exactly. I kept telling our core team, we're not doing STEM. Remember earlier in this conversation, I said we're doing it. It's just random. Well, I wasn't saying that at the very beginning. I was saying because I couldn't find it, I couldn't see it from a piece of paper standpoint that we have a plan. So I was using wrong words. I said we weren't doing it. And gently, our curriculum director pulled me aside and said, "Be careful, because we got some teachers that are really working hard in this area. And if you say we're not doing it, it's going to feel like you kind of deflated the room, sort of thing." So, watching your words is important. Again, finding those shining spots of success is I think that was something that kind of helped us out. I think the other one is just like, listen, I love the shiny, glittery stuff. Like, I love it. Like my classroom, when I was a high school math teacher, we were shooting bottle rockets. We were out. I mean, seriously, I had all the stuff. If there was a grant, I wrote it. Yeah. And I wanted it. And I was on my own worst nightmare of kind of, so when I say this is not about us buying a lot of stuff, it's really about me saying, like, don't force yourself to take the easy way to think that there's something you can purchase that defines what success like this is. That's easy. If I were to say we're gonna go ahead and put money in and we're gonna buy all this stuff, that would be the easier route. I think to what you just said, the harder route, which I think is what our families really want, is we want our kids to be curious and collaborative and creative. And right. So I think that, and by the way, I keep saying those three. Citizenship is probably what, during this, we went through also this past couple of years, a mission, vision, rebranding process. Had a lot of conversations about, like, the ethical things and moral things our kids are going to have to come to grips with that maybe previous generations didn't have to do because the technology is going to be there. And
Yeah.
so it's this idea about like I can create this, but now how do I make sure I do it for the right reasons? Artificial
Mm,
intelligence is a great thing right there on, I have tension around artificial intelligence. Like we didn't just open the floodgates of this. And even though I'm a big tech person and I'm on social media, even I think people thought like I'm going to jump into this full feet first. And I said, no, I'm concerned about it too. We don't want our kids to cheat, but it is a learning tool. Like
right.
we got to figure out what is that healthy way of doing it in the right way.
Yes, yes. New York State just released its portrait of a graduate requirements as regents are kind of on the way out. Now, you're just a tad bit west of New York State, but I know that you're approaching your portrait of a graduate project as well. So, talk a little bit about how you're approaching it. And what I specifically want to talk about is why the localization of how you're doing this matters. Like, and it reflects back to my opinion that a state can give guidance and how much a community has to embrace and adapt, and I'd love to hear how you're doing that.
Sure. Yeah. So we haven't started yet, but like I said, we went through a new mission, vision, rebranding
Right.
process. And I believe that this is just me personally, that great companies, top companies, education, that sort of thing. I think every 8 to 10 years they should look at their mission and vision. I'm not saying that they have to change it, but they should take a pause to go, is this really what our community still believes of how we are unique and different and special? Kind of like what I said earlier in the interview process about vision of we're not cookie cutter. Just because we all have the same state requirements doesn't mean that our community has the same DNA and expectations as the other ones. And so this portrait of a learner, and I say portrait of a learner because portrait of a graduate people perceive to be a high school initiative, and it starts in high school and ends in high school. Portrait of a learner to me
Yeah.
feels like it's a pre-K to 12 and maybe even beyond sort of thing on either side. But it's this idea about like, what are those dispositions that we want students to have? It goes back to something like the 5 Cs. It's this idea about what are those attributes that we want to have. So in addition to the kids will graduate with requirements, hope that there's something more about that. And what is unique about that? I think what is important is that, like, could I create that in 5 seconds? Yeah, but again, it would be my vision, and this has to be a
Right.
community collaboratively driven process. And so we're just starting this process, but we will get and engage students. Don't just think this is an adult thing that we do unto kids. We're working with a consultant on this. Marlon Stiles is helping us with this, and it was interesting.
Oh, I know Marlon.
You know Marlon, see?
Yes, of course.
Absolutely. Everybody knows Marlon, just like everybody knows Jen Womble. So that works out.
He's also, both of them are both prior Learning Can't Wait guests. So
There you go.
welcome to the team.
There you go. Okay. I'm in a good position then. But I think in my head I would have said, yeah, of course we've got to engage students. We'll engage high school kids, and maybe we'll engage junior high students. Like I was in
Yeah.
that space. Well, I met with Marlon earlier this week because we project managed this, and he said all of our schools, and I said we have a kindergarten only building. I said, so you don't mean the kindergarten only building? And he goes, no,
Mm,
I do mean the kindergarten only building. And I think that that's going to be like, I'm so glad he said that. I'm so glad he's working with us because I maybe would have just said high school and junior high is enough. And
yeah.
no, they have feedback that they're going to want to get. So I'm so excited about that. But the idea isn't just, people will create, and we will too, this pretty little graphic with words on it, but it's the fingerprints. I wish there was a way to somehow put all the fingerprints of all the people that were part of that. That's what's going to be the most special thing in the world, and that we've got to make sure that voices are represented in there.
Yeah, I know that the desire you have to ensure you're really gathering opinions is very honorable. And honestly, it's not easy. Like, I think you mentioned this before when you were talking about decision making, how sometimes you say, well, Dr. Gupta is going to make this decision and we're going to have to move forward with it. Like leadership, I think a lot of people don't understand, if they haven't been a leader before, that sometimes you make decisions with consensus, sometimes with advisement, sometimes from the top. And it is very hard to do the first. Consensus, where you like work together and build a collaborative decision, or you build a collaborative strategy, is extremely challenging because you're not going to have everybody on the exact same page with the exact same goals. So it's very much an art.
Yeah, it's messy. There's something called the Vroom-Yetton model that comes to mind when I think about those things. And basically there's a survey you can take, and it's basically the answers are all the same, or sorry, the choices are all the same. You make a decision by yourself. You gather a group of people, but you make the decision. You get a group of people, the group makes a decision, that sort of thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so the scenarios are things like there's a suitcase. You're in charge of a TSA and at an airport, and there's a suitcase sitting there unattended. What do you do? Like, do you get a group together and you guys then make a decision, or no, I'm just going to go and I'm going to go ahead and take care of it myself, sort of thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
like there is a right decision on things like that. Two school districts are being merged together, and you've got to come up with all the decisions that have to take place when that happens. Well, I'm gonna use consensus building, practices in that one. So there's decisions. Well, this model basically teaches there's development driven decisions that have to happen, and then there's time driven. So sometimes you have no time. The alarm goes off, you've got to go. Like, it's a minute before a decision has to be made. Somebody's going to make that decision. The goal is, to the extent that possible, if you've got the time, your goal is to build the team. Your goal is to build team. It's going to be deeper, right? Like I talked about the idea about more fingerprints, but sometimes you're not afforded that luxury, and you've got to make the time. I think that when that happens, it just means that you've got to be more clear on why you're making that decision. You've got to be sometimes clear up front. Like I just talked with a group of our new staff administrators, and I just said, sometimes walking into the room saying that at the very, very beginning, hey, we're having a meeting today. I just want to let you know that I'm here today. We're not making decisions. And then you go to the next meeting and go, hey, today I'm gathering input, and then I'm going to walk away and I'm going to think about it. I'm going to make a decision, or me and another administrator make a decision, or hey, today at the end of this meeting, we're going to make a decision. But saying those things up front, I think does feel a lot better, because people will just instinctively think we're all in the room, so we're all going to be in part of the decision. And you've just got to make sure you clarify that.
Yeah. So you actually just shared an anecdote that was almost identical, like a story almost identical to an anecdote I was going to share, which is that one of my best leaders I ever had when I was in a school, when I was an AP, he was the principal, he studied organizational psychology. And that's how he led every meeting. He was like, hey, today we're talking about X. Let me be very clear. With X, I'm going to be making the decision at the end, but I want to gather your opinions before I do that. And it really reduced people's frustration.
Correct.
Right. And that's ultimately, when you're trying to build a new initiative like a comprehensive STEM program, and you talked about having some enthusiastic folks leading the charge, you really need to get a pulse on people for your ideas and the community's growth to be successful.
Yeah. That's it. Exactly.
So did you study organizational psychology?
I did, and I love it. I keep it up. It's all about leadership, but which is all about relationships. Right? Like, my favorite quote is an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The reason I love that quote is because it reminds me of my failure in leadership every time. Because sometimes I just want to go fast. And it's just easier if I just do it on my own. Here's the deal. You're out and you turn around and there's nobody there, or you're dragging bodies with you, sort of thing. That's not what I want to do. I want to make sure we're like locking arms together, because I've seen initiatives fail when the person leaves the system. Like, the whole goal is that, like, almost like this STEM initiative and this Portrait of a Learner, right? The whole goal is eventually I will die. Eventually I will die. The goal is that when I step away, those things stay secure into that system. And so you've got to build differently if that's what you want. I mean, if I want to get stuff done, I could start checking boxes and using my authority to make all this stuff happen. But if I want it to stick even after I'm gone, you're going to build differently about that. Now, with that said, 8 to 10 years later, a leader should come in and assess, is it still what the community wants to do and should do? And there. So you've got to be okay with that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. These are really powerful words. And I actually don't think I've had a conversation with a superintendent or a district level leader or even a principal about this particular topic. And basically what I do in life is I compare everything to the classroom. So if our listeners today are teachers or even parents, let me be very clear. I also compare everything to parenthood. I think that this still applies. Like, I'm taking my kid to the park and it's not a consensus what time we leave. Like, we're leaving at 4 o'clock, whether or not you are in the middle of building the best sand castle ever or not. And if I let my kid know that up front, it reduces a lot of the later frustration. And the same thing in a classroom. Kids think they get to choose what they do for the party. Maybe sometimes they do, but sometimes it's based on the budget of the school. Like, we're getting pizza because that's what the school allows. And so I just want to name that outright for the listeners who may not be a superintendent like Dr. Gupta, and instead are a superintendent of their own home or a superintendent of their own classroom, that these practices that you're naming and describing are really excellent leadership and life principles.
Sure. You absolutely, like, there are times where my wife will go, is this something you're doing to me right now? Like, like we're having this conversation and she'll go, you're going to this mode of how we're going to decide what's going to happen this weekend or what we're choosing for dinner tonight. So it doesn't have to be these grandiose things. You're right.
Yeah.
Sometimes happen in very simple things too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, it's very refreshing. I'm like enjoying this conversation in a whole different way. And I'm taking a lot out of it. I hope everyone else is too. As my final question, I always ask guests, what advice would you give a teacher starting their career today? So I'd love to know what you'd say.
Yeah, I think, just kind of, especially as I'm thinking about the beginning of the school year. I'm thinking about the idea about, and it really is, hopefully you've walked away going, I expected Neil to say this, but it's about relationships. Like, there was one year that our assistant superintendent was meeting with a group of new hires and had to actually say out loud, hey, the first week of school, I just need you to build relationships. Like, I just need you to build. The number of the new staff members writing it down kind of scared me a little bit. Like, they were like writing it down, like, oh, build relationships.
That's new. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, it was something new. And we were like, if you don't say it, then there could be this expectation like, oh, that guy, that Superintendent Gupta over at that central office, he wants us to probably get, like, I haven't seen him in a while, so he probably wants me to get test scores up. So I better, first day of school, I better pass out those books and get the kids learning. And we'll get there. You'll get there. You'll get there faster in the long run and more deeper if you spend time building relationships. So there are times where you may have to say no to a student or have to give some unhappy news to a parent. I would say, go in there going, there is a way that I can do this building a relationship. So I'm not always saying that you always have to say yes. You can sometimes say no, but there is a way to do it, and look for that way.
Amazing. Dr. Gupta, thank you so much for your time today.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. What a great way to kind of start the morning off for me.
I know. I feel like I need an inspiring chat like this every morning, and right. It's rare, which is what makes you so special. So thank you for sharing that specialness with our audience.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for listening to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share this episode. Be the first to know when we have a new episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a suggestion for an episode, email us at podcast@fullmindlearning.com.